The dust was turning her throat raw, and her stomach hadn't stopped twisting with hunger for 3 days when Hannah Harper saw the lone cowboy watering his horse at the trough outside the saloon in Pinos Altos, New Mexico. The year was 1878, and opportunities for a woman without family or protection were scarce as spring rain in the desert. She straightened her worn traveling dress, pushed a strand of auburn hair from her face, and forced her tired legs to carry her across the rutted street. "Excuse me, sir," Hannah said, her voice barely louder than the hot wind that swept through the dusty street. "I am looking for work, any kind of work. I can cook, clean, mend clothing, tend animals. I am strong and capable, and I will work harder than anyone you have ever employed." The cowboy turned to face her, and Hannah found herself looking into eyes the color of summer sky. He was tall, probably in his mid-20s, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and shoulders broad from years of ranch work. His sun-weathered face held an expression of surprise, then something softer that Hannah could not quite identify. "You look half-starved," he said, his deep voice carrying concern rather than judgment. "When did you last eat?" Hannah felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she kept her chin raised. "That is not relevant to my ability to work, sir. I assure you I am quite capable despite my current circumstances." The cowboy studied her for a long moment, and Hannah held his gaze despite the urge to look away. She had learned that showing weakness in this harsh land meant certain death, or worse. "The name is Logan Vaughn," he said finally. "I own a ranch about 5 miles west of town. I lost my cook and housekeeper 2 months ago when she married and moved to Santa Fe. The place is falling apart without proper care, and I could use someone who knows how to run a household. The job is yours if you want it. Room, board, and $30 a month." Hannah felt her knees weaken with relief, but she forced herself to remain steady. $30 is generous, Mr. Vaughn. I accept your offer gratefully." "Good. Let me get my horse, and we will head out now. There is no point in you staying in this town another night when there is a proper bed and hot food waiting at the ranch." Logan moved to untie his horse, a handsome bay gelding with intelligent eyes. "Can you ride?" "I can," Hannah said, though in truth it had been years since she had ridden regularly. Her father had owned a small farm in Missouri before the war changed everything. Before fever took both her parents and left her with nothing but the clothes on her back and a desperate need to survive. Logan nodded and swung himself into the saddle with practiced ease. He extended his hand down to her. "Come on then. You can ride with me. It is too far to walk in this heat, and you look like you might collapse before we make it a mile." Hannah hesitated only a moment before accepting his hand. His grip was strong and warm, and he pulled her up behind him as though she weighed nothing at all. She settled onto the horse behind the cantle, acutely aware of how close she sat to this stranger who had just changed the course of her life. "Hold on," Logan said, and Hannah wrapped her arms around his waist as he urged the horse into a steady trot that carried them away from Pinos Altos and out into the vast New Mexico landscape. The land stretched out around them in shades of gold and rust, dotted with juniper trees and pinyon pines that gave the town its name. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks still holding patches of snow despite the June heat. The sky was so blue it almost hurt to look at, and the air smelled of sage and dry earth. Despite her exhaustion and uncertainty, Hannah felt something stir in her chest. This land was harsh and unforgiving, but there was a wild beauty to it that called to something deep inside her. "How did you end up in Pinos Altos?" Logan asked after they had ridden in silence for a while. "It is not exactly on the main roads, and you do not look like you came here prospecting for gold." Hannah chose her words carefully. "I was traveling with a wagon train heading to California. We stopped in Silver City to resupply, and I became ill. The wagon master said they could not wait for me to recover, so they left me behind. When I was well enough to travel again, I made my way here hoping to find work so I could earn enough money to continue west." It was mostly true. She left out the part about the wagon master's son, who had taken too much interest in her, and how she had chosen to stay behind rather than endure his unwanted attention for the remaining months of the journey. She left out the nights spent sleeping in the church when the preacher's wife took pity on her, and the days spent asking for work at every business in Silver City until she realized she needed to try a different town. "California is a long way from here," Logan said. "What were you hoping to find there?" "A new life," Hannah answered honestly. A chance to start over where no one knows my history or my losses. Logan was quiet for a moment, and Hannah felt the muscles in his back shift as he adjusted his seat in the saddle. Sometimes the new life we need finds us in unexpected places, he said finally. This ranch has been in my family since my father settled the land in 1865. He and my mother built it from nothing, cleared the land, raised cattle and horses. They both passed last winter during a particularly harsh cold spell. It has been just me since then, trying to keep everything running the way they would have wanted. I am sorry for your loss, Hannah said softly, understanding the weight of those words better than most. Grief is a strange companion, Logan replied. Some days it feels fresh as an open wound. Other days it sits quiet in the background, just a dull ache that reminds you of what you had. But life continues whether we are ready for it or not. The cattle still need tending, the horses still need breaking, and the land still demands its due. They rode on, and gradually the landscape began to change. A creek appeared, lined with cottonwood trees that provided blessed shade. Grass grew greener here, and Hannah could see cattle grazing in the distance. Then the ranch house came into view, and Hannah caught her breath. It was larger than she had expected, a solid structure of wood and stone with a wide porch that wrapped around two sides. The roof looked sound, and glass windows reflected the afternoon sun. There was a barn to the left, a smaller structure that was probably the bunkhouse, and several corrals where horses moved lazily in the heat. Everything showed signs of good construction and careful planning, though Hannah could see that Logan had been telling the truth about things falling into disrepair. The porch needed sweeping, weeds grew tall along the fence lines, and laundry hung haphazardly from a line near the house. Logan brought the horse to a stop in front of the house and dismounted, then reached up to help Hannah down. Her legs trembled when her feet touched the ground, exhaustion finally catching up with her, now that safety seemed within reach. Steady, Logan said, his hands remaining on her waist until he was sure she would not fall. Let me get you inside and fed before you do anything else. The work can wait until you have recovered your strength. He guided her up the porch steps and through the front door into a spacious main room that served as both sitting area and dining space. The furniture was well made but covered in dust. Dishes were stacked on the table, and Hannah could see into the kitchen beyond where more evidence of bachelor living was apparent. The bedroom at the end of the hall will be yours, Logan said, pointing to a hallway that led off from the main room. It was my mother's sewing room, but she had a bed in there for when she wanted to rest while working. It has a good window that catches the morning sun, and there is a lock on the door if that makes you feel safer. Hannah met his eyes, surprised by the consideration. Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. Call me Logan. We are going to be living under the same roof, so we might as well dispense with excessive formality. He moved toward the kitchen. Sit down before you fall down. I will make you something to eat. That is supposed to be my job, Hannah protested, but Logan shook his head. Your job starts tomorrow after you have had a proper night's rest. Today, you are a guest who needs care. He disappeared into the kitchen, and Hannah sank gratefully onto one of the chairs at the dining table. She looked around the room with more attention now, noticing details that spoke of the family who had lived here. A framed photograph on the mantel showed a stern-looking man and a gentle-faced woman. Logan's parents, she assumed. There were books on a shelf, more books than Hannah had seen outside of a library. A guitar leaned in one corner, and colorful woven blankets were draped over the backs of chairs. This had been a home filled with love and life. Now it felt hollow, waiting for that energy to return. Logan emerged from the kitchen carrying a plate of bread, cheese, and cold beef, along with a cup of water. It is not fancy, but it will fill your stomach. I will make something more substantial for dinner once you have had a chance to rest. Hannah's hands shook as she reached for the food, and she had to force herself to eat slowly rather than wolfing it down like her starving body demanded. The bread was slightly stale, but still good, the cheese sharp and satisfying. She could not remember the last time anything had tasted so wonderful. Logan sat across from her, watching with an expression that Hannah could not quite read. How old are you? He asked, if you do not mind my asking. 22, Hannah replied between bites. I know I probably look older. The road has a way of aging a person. You look exactly 22, Logan said, just tired and hungry. Nothing that rest and regular meals will not fix. He paused. I am 26, in case you were wondering. I only mention it because we will be living in close quarters, and I want you to understand that I am offering you honest work and nothing more. You will be safe here, Hannah. You have my word on that. The use of her given name sent an unexpected warmth through Hannah's chest. She met his eyes and saw only sincerity there. "I believe you, Logan." They sat in comfortable silence while Hannah finished her meal. When the plate was empty, Logan showed her to the bedroom that would be hers. It was small but clean, with a narrow bed covered in a quilt, a chest of drawers, and that promised window. Someone, probably Logan's mother, had painted the walls a soft yellow that made the room feel warm and welcoming. "There are some of my mother's things in the chest if you need clothes or personal items," Logan said. "She would want them used rather than sitting here gathering dust. You are about the same size she was, so they should fit well enough." Hannah felt tears prick her eyes at the unexpected kindness. "I will take good care of them." "I know you will." Logan moved toward the door. "Rest now. I will wake you for dinner in a few hours." When he was gone, Hannah sat on the edge of the bed and let herself feel the full weight of everything that had happened. She had gambled everything on finding work in Pinos Altos, had been down to her last shred of hope and energy. And then Logan Vaughn had appeared, like an answer to a prayer she had been too tired to voice. She did not know what the future held, but for the first time in months, Hannah felt like she might actually survive. More than survive, perhaps. Maybe even find a way to live again. She stretched out on the bed, intending to rest for just a moment, but exhaustion claimed her immediately, and she fell into the deepest sleep she had known in months. When Hannah woke, the light outside her window had turned golden with late afternoon sun. The smell of cooking food drifted down the hallway, and her stomach reminded her that one meal was not nearly enough to make up for days of hunger. She rose and splashed water on her face from the basin on the dresser, then tentatively opened the chest of drawers Logan had mentioned. Inside, she found carefully folded dresses, shirtwaists, and undergarments. Everything was clean and well-maintained, preserved by a man who could not quite bring himself to let go of his mother's possessions. Hannah selected a simple blue work dress that looked practical for the kind of labor she would be doing. It fit reasonably well, perhaps a bit loose in places, but nothing that could not be adjusted with a belt. She braided her long auburn hair, pinched her cheeks to bring some color back into them, and made her way to the kitchen. Logan stood at the stove, stirring something in a large pot. He had removed his vest and rolled up his shirt sleeves, revealing forearms tanned and muscled from hard work. He looked up when she entered and gave her a smile that transformed his serious face into something warmer. "You look better," he said. "Still too thin, but better. How do you feel?" "Like a human being again instead of a ghost," Hannah admitted. "That sleep helped more than I can say." "Good. Come sit down. Dinner is almost ready." Logan ladled stew into 2 bowls and brought them to the table, along with more of the bread from earlier. "It is just beef stew, nothing fancy. I am afraid my cooking skills are limited to things that can survive in one pot." Hannah took a bite and nearly moaned with pleasure. The stew was rich and hearty, filled with tender meat, potatoes, carrots, and onions in a savory broth. "This is delicious. You are too modest about your abilities." Logan looked pleased by the compliment. "My mother taught me the basics before she passed. She said no man should be completely helpless in a kitchen, even if it is not his primary domain." He took a bite of his own stew. "Though I will admit that I have been eating far too many meals exactly like this one. I am looking forward to having some variety again." "What did you do about meals before your mother passed?" Hannah asked. "She did most of the cooking, though I would help when things were busy on the ranch. My father ran cattle primarily, and I still do, though I have been building up the horse operation as well. There is good money in breaking and selling horses to the army and to ranchers who need reliable mounts." He paused to butter a slice of bread. "We used to have 3 ranch hands who lived in the bunkhouse, but they moved on after my parents died. It has just been me and a couple of part-time workers who come help during roundup and branding season." "You must be working yourself to exhaustion trying to manage everything alone," Hannah said. "I do what needs to be done, the same as everyone out here." Logan met her eyes across the table. "But I will not pretend it has not been difficult. The loneliness is almost worse than the work. This house feels too big and too empty with just me rattling around in it." Hannah understood that feeling all too well. "I know what you mean. I have felt like a ghost myself these past months, just drifting from place to place without any real anchor." They finished their meal in thoughtful silence, and then Hannah stood to clear the dishes. "Let me do this. You cooked, so I should clean." Logan looked like he might argue, but then he nodded. "All right, I need to check on the horses before dark anyway. Take your time getting familiar with the kitchen. We can discuss the full scope of your duties tomorrow." He left through the back door, and Hannah set to work washing dishes and exploring the kitchen. It was well appointed with a good stove, plenty of pots and pans, and a larder stocked with basics like flour, sugar, coffee, and beans. There was a root cellar accessible through a trapdoor in the floor, and Hannah found potatoes, onions, and carrots stored there, along with preserved vegetables and fruits in jars. Everything she needed to prepare proper meals. As she worked, Hannah found herself thinking about Logan Vaughn. He was not what she had expected when she approached him in town. She had braced herself for suspicion, for demands, for the kind of leering attention she had grown accustomed to from men who saw a woman alone as prey. Instead, Logan had offered her dignity along with employment. He had made sure she was fed and rested before expecting anything from her. He had given her privacy and safety without asking for anything in return. It was strange and wonderful and slightly terrifying because Hannah had learned not to trust easy kindness. The world had taught her that everything came with a price. But as she dried the last dish and hung the towel to dry, she found herself hoping that maybe, just maybe, Logan Vaughn was exactly what he appeared to be. A good man trying to do right in a hard world. Over the following days, Hannah threw herself into the work of restoring order to the ranch house. She scrubbed floors until they gleamed, beat dust from rugs and curtains, washed windows until they sparkled in the sunlight. She reorganized the kitchen to her liking, took inventory of what supplies were running low, and began planning meals that would provide proper nutrition for a man who worked as hard as Logan did. She baked bread fresh each morning, filling the house with a smell that made Logan pause and close his eyes in appreciation whenever he came inside. She made hearty breakfasts of eggs, bacon, and fried potatoes. She prepared stews and roasts for dinner, served with vegetables from the garden she discovered behind the house. The garden had been neglected, overgrown with weeds, but Hannah could see the good bones beneath the chaos. She spent her afternoons coaxing it back to life, pulling weeds and watering carefully, encouraging the tomatoes and beans and squash to thrive again. Logan watched her work with an expression that shifted between gratitude and something deeper that Hannah could not quite name. He was unfailingly polite, thanking her for every meal, complimenting her cooking, and the changes she made to the house. But he also kept a careful distance, as though afraid to breach some invisible boundary that existed between employer and employee. A week passed, then two. Hannah felt her strength returning as regular meals and stable shelter worked their magic. Her dresses began to fit properly again as her body recovered from near starvation. The sun brought color to her cheeks, and the hard work put muscle back on her frame. She learned Logan's routines and adjusted her own work to complement them. He rose before dawn to tend the horses and cattle, so she made sure hot coffee and breakfast were waiting when he came in from the barn. He often worked through the middle of the day when the heat was most intense, so she prepared cold lunches he could take with him. Evenings he spent mending tack or working on ranch accounts at the big desk in the corner of the main room, so she made sure he had good light and strong coffee to help him focus. They developed an easy rhythm together, two people learning to share space and responsibility. They talked during meals, Logan sharing stories about the ranch and the land, Hannah offering observations about the house and asking questions about how he preferred things done. The conversations were pleasant but surface level, both of them dancing around deeper topics, careful not to presume too much familiarity. But Hannah was increasingly aware of Logan in ways that had nothing to do with work. She noticed the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the deep rumble of his laugh when something genuinely amused him. She noticed the strength in his hands and the gentleness with which he handled the horses. She noticed the way he looked at her sometimes when he thought she was not paying attention, his expression soft and wondering. It was dangerous territory, and Hannah knew it. She could not afford to develop feelings for her employer. She needed this job, this safety, this chance to build stability back into her shattered life. Romance would complicate everything, potentially destroy the fragile security she had begun to establish. But the heart, Hannah was discovering, did not always obey logic. One evening in early July, after a particularly hot day spent preserving vegetables from the garden, Hannah sat on the porch steps trying to catch whatever breeze might stir in the cooling air. Logan emerged from the barn and walked over to join her, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. "You have been working too hard," he said, handing her one of the cups and settling onto the step beside her. "The house has not looked this good since my mother was alive. The garden is producing again. Every meal you make is better than the last. You are going to make me fat and lazy if you keep this up." Hannah smiled despite her tiredness. "Somehow, I doubt that. You work harder than any man I have ever seen." "Because there is always more work to be done on a ranch," Logan said. "But that is not an excuse for me to let you exhaust yourself. You are supposed to be recovering, not working yourself into the ground." "I am recovered," Hannah assured him. "I feel stronger than I have in years, honestly. And I like the work. It feels good to have purpose again, to be building something instead of just surviving." Logan was quiet for a moment, staring out at the land that stretched away into the gathering dusk. "Can I ask you something personal? You do not have to answer if you do not want to." "All right," Hannah said cautiously. "In all the time you have been here, you have never mentioned family or friends, never written a letter or talked about anyone who might be worried about you. Are you truly alone in the world?" Hannah set her coffee cup on the step and wrapped her arms around her knees. "My parents died when I was 18. Fever took them both within a week of each other. There was no other family, and the farm was sold to pay their debts. I had been engaged to a young man from the neighboring farm, but after my parents died and the farm was gone, he decided I was no longer a suitable match. He married someone else 6 months later." "What a fool," Logan said quietly. Hannah turned to look at him, surprised. "What?" "He was a fool to let you go. Anyone with eyes can see that you are remarkable, strong, capable, intelligent, beautiful." Logan's voice was steady, but his eyes held an intensity that made Hannah's breath catch. "Any man would be lucky to have you in his life." "Logan," Hannah began, but she did not know how to finish the sentence. Her heart was suddenly beating too fast, and the air between them felt charged with possibility. "I am sorry," Logan said. "That was inappropriate. You work for me, and I should not be saying such things. I just—" He stopped, ran a hand through his dark hair in frustration. "You asked me weeks ago about your duties, and I told you to take care of the house and the cooking. But the truth is, you have done so much more than that. You have brought life back to this place. You have made it feel like a home again, instead of just a structure where I sleep between work days. And I—" He stopped again, and this time Hannah reached out and placed her hand over his where it rested on his knee. "And you what?" Logan looked down at their joined hands, then back up at her face. "And I find myself thinking about you when I should be focused on work, wondering what you are doing, hoping you will smile when I come in for meals, looking forward to these evening conversations more than I should. I think I am developing feelings for you, Hannah, and I do not know if that is welcome or if I am making a terrible mistake by admitting it." Hannah's mind raced. She should pull away, should maintain professional distance, should protect the security she had fought so hard to achieve. But looking into Logan's honest eyes, seeing the vulnerability in his expression, she could not bring herself to lie. "You are not making a mistake," she said softly. "I have been having the same thoughts about you. I have been trying not to, telling myself it is foolish and dangerous. But the truth is that I have come to care for you very much." Logan's hand turned beneath hers, his fingers intertwining with her own. "Where does that leave us?" "I do not know," Hannah admitted. "This is complicated. You are my employer. I depend on you for my livelihood. If things went wrong between us—" "They would not," Logan said firmly. "Hannah, look at me." When she met his eyes, he continued, "I am not the kind of man who plays games with people's hearts or livelihoods. If we are going to explore these feelings, I want to do it honestly and carefully. Your position here is secure, regardless of what happens between us as individuals. That is my promise to you." "How can you be sure?" Hannah asked. "Feelings change, people change. Some things I know all the way to my bones," Logan said. "And one of those things is that you are exactly the kind of woman I have been hoping to find. The kind who understands hard work and values stability, who can handle the challenges of this life without breaking, who makes me want to be better than I am." He squeezed her hand gently. "I am not asking you to marry me tonight. I am just asking if you would be willing to see where this might lead, to let us get to know each other as more than employer and employee." Hannah felt tears prick her eyes, but they were good tears this time, tears of relief and hope and the terrifying joy of taking a risk. "Yes, I would like that very much." Logan's smile was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. He lifted her hand to his lips and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles. Then let us take this slow and do it right. Courting the old-fashioned way, with respect and proper boundaries. I want to earn your trust, Hannah. I want you to be sure. I think I am already sure, Hannah whispered, but I appreciate the care you are taking with this. With me. They sat together on the porch steps as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, hands still joined, both of them marveling at how quickly life could change. How one desperate moment in a dusty town could lead to this. Two lonely people finding each other against all odds. The courtship that followed was unlike anything Hannah had experienced before. Logan courted her with a combination of Western practicality and genuine romance that made her feel cherished and respected in equal measure. He brought her wildflowers from the meadow beyond the creek, presenting them with an almost boyish shyness that made her heart flutter. He taught her to ride properly, patient and encouraging, as she relearned skills she had not used in years. They would ride out together in the evenings when the work was done, exploring the ranch land and talking about everything and nothing. Logan told her about his childhood, growing up on the ranch with parents who loved each other deeply and taught him through example what a good marriage looked like. He told her about learning to rope and ride before he could properly read, about helping his father drive cattle to market, about the pride he felt in continuing the legacy they had built. Hannah told him about her own childhood on the Missouri farm, about lazy summer days reading beneath apple trees, about her mother teaching her to cook and sew, about her father's booming laugh and gentle hands. She told him about the pain of losing them both so suddenly, about the disillusionment of her broken engagement, about the hard lessons she had learned while traveling alone. They learned each other's dreams and fears, their hopes for the future, their wounds from the past. Logan proved himself to be an attentive listener, someone who remembered details and asked thoughtful questions. He never pressed her to share more than she was comfortable revealing, but his genuine interest encouraged her to open up in ways she had not with anyone else. August arrived with scorching heat and the constant buzz of cicadas. Hannah's garden was producing abundantly now, and she spent long hours preserving food for the winter ahead. Logan hired back 2 of his former ranch hands to help with preparations for the fall roundup, and suddenly the ranch felt more alive with the sounds of multiple people working and talking. The ranch hands, 2 weathered men named Pete and Samuel, treated Hannah with respect that bordered on reverence. "Miss Hannah, madam," Pete said on his first day back, hat in his hands and expression earnest. "We sure are glad Logan found someone to help him run this place proper. It has been breaking our hearts to see him struggling alone." Hannah found she enjoyed having more people to cook for, taking pleasure in their compliments about her meals and the way they lingered at the table talking and laughing. The bunkhouse came alive with lightened voices in the evenings, and Logan seemed lighter too, less burdened by the weight of doing everything himself. One Sunday in late August, Logan surprised Hannah by asking if she would like to attend the church service in Pinos Altos. "I have been neglecting my social obligations," he said, "and I would like people to meet you properly." After the service, they had lunch at the small restaurant attached to the hotel, and Hannah noticed the way people watched them together, not with judgment, but with a kind of knowing approval that suggested the whole town could see what was developing between them. "They think we are courting," Hannah said, as they rode back to the ranch in the wagon Logan had brought for the occasion. "We are courting," Logan replied, glancing at her with a smile. "Or have I been doing it wrong?" "No, you have been doing it exactly right. I just mean people are noticing. Talking, probably." "Let them talk. I am not ashamed of my feelings for you, Hannah. Are you ashamed of yours for me?" "Of course not," Hannah said quickly. "I just do not want to damage your reputation. An unmarried woman living in your house. Even as an employee, people could make assumptions." Logan was quiet for a moment as he guided the horses along the rutted road. "Is that something that worries you? What people might say?" "I worry about how it might affect you," Hannah said honestly. "You have to live here, do business with these people. I do not want to make that harder for you." "Hannah?" Logan pulled the wagon to a stop and turned to face her fully. "The only thing that would make my life harder is losing you. I do not care what people say or think as long as I know the truth. And you know the truth. We are conducting ourselves with honor and propriety. Anyone who wants to gossip about that says more about themselves than about us." Hannah felt warmth spread through her chest at his words. "How did you get to be so wise?" "My mother used to say that wisdom is just paying attention to what matters and letting the rest fall away," Logan said. He reached over and took her hand. You matter to me, Hannah Harper. More than gossip, more than reputation, more than anything else I can think of. You matter to me, too, Hannah said softly. So very much. Logan lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her palm that sent shivers through her entire body. I want to court you properly, with clear intentions. I want to give you time to be absolutely certain of your feelings. But I want you to know where my heart is heading. Toward forever, if you will have me. Hannah felt tears sting her eyes again. I think my heart is heading the same direction. Good, Logan said, his voice rough with emotion. That is very good. They completed the ride home in comfortable silence, hands clasped between them, both of them thinking about futures that suddenly seemed bright and possible. As summer faded into fall, the ranch became a whirlwind of activity. The autumn roundup required all hands on deck, and Logan hired several additional temporary workers to help bring the cattle down from the high country. Hannah found herself cooking for 8 to 10 hungry men at every meal, rising before dawn to prepare hearty breakfasts and staying up late to ensure everyone had full bellies before bed. It was exhausting work, but Hannah thrived on it. She loved the challenge of managing large meals, the satisfaction of watching strong men savor her cooking, the way Logan's eyes sought her out across crowded rooms, with expressions of gratitude and something warmer. She loved feeling essential, knowing that her work contributed directly to the success of the ranch. The roundup took 3 weeks of hard, dusty work. Hannah saw less of Logan during this time, as he spent long days in the saddle gathering cattle and overseeing the branding. But when he did come in, tired and covered in dirt, his face would light up at the sight of her. They stole moments together when they could, brief conversations in the kitchen while she fixed him a plate of food, quiet exchanges on the porch after everyone else had gone to bed. One night, near the end of the roundup, Logan came in long after dark, looking utterly exhausted. The other men had already eaten and retired to the bunkhouse, and Hannah had been keeping food warm for him. Sit, she commanded when he tried to help her prepare the plate. You look ready to fall over. Logan sat without argument, which told Hannah how tired he really was. She placed a full plate in front of him, along with hot coffee, then moved behind his chair and began gently kneading the tight muscles of his shoulders. Logan groaned with relief. You are going to spoil me. Good. You deserve to be spoiled after working yourself this hard. Hannah continued working on the knots in his shoulders, feeling them gradually loosen under her hands. How much longer until the roundup is finished? 2 more days, maybe 3. We've found most of the herd, and the branding is nearly complete. It has been a good year, Hannah, better than I hoped. We will have excellent cattle to take to market, and the horse operation is thriving too. He reached back and caught one of her hands, bringing it around to press it against his cheek. None of this would be working so well without you. The men are happy and well fed, the house runs smoothly, and I can focus on the ranch work without worrying about everything else falling apart. We make a good team, Hannah said softly. We do, Logan agreed. He stood and turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. I have been thinking about something for a while now, but I did not want to rush you or make you feel pressured, but I cannot keep it to myself any longer. Hannah's heart began to beat faster. What is it? I love you, Logan said simply. I have fallen completely and irrevocably in love with you, Hannah Harper, and I do not want to wait any more to make my intentions clear. When the roundup is finished and the temporary workers have gone, I want to court you officially and openly, with the clear goal of marriage, if that is something you want too. Hannah felt her breath catch in her throat. This was real. This was happening. This good, honest man was standing in front of her, declaring his love and his desire to build a life together. It was everything she had stopped believing in after her parents died and her engagement fell apart. I love you too, she whispered. I think I have loved you since that first day when you offered me dignity along with employment, when you made sure I was fed and safe before expecting anything from me. You have shown me through your actions every single day what kind of man you are, Logan Vaughn, and I would be honored to be courted by you with marriage as the intention. Logan's smile was brilliant and beautiful. He cupped her face in his calloused hands and leaned down slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away. When she did not, when she rose on her toes to meet him, he kissed her with a gentleness that made her want to cry. The kiss was sweet and tender and full of promise. It tasted like coffee and hope, and the beginning of something that felt destined. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard and grinning like fools. "I have wanted to do that for so long," Logan admitted, his forehead resting against hers. "So have I," Hannah said, "though I kept trying to convince myself it would be improper. We are betrothed now, or as good as. That makes it proper enough." Logan kissed her again, longer this time, his arms coming around her waist to pull her close. Hannah melted into him, marveling at how perfectly she fit against his solid frame, how right this felt. When they finally pulled apart again, Logan kept her in the circle of his arms. "I want to marry you as soon as possible. I know there are traditions and proprieties to observe, but Hannah, I do not want to wait months and months. Would a Christmas wedding be too soon? That would give us time to post banns and make proper arrangements, but it would not drag things out unnecessarily." Hannah pretended to consider, even though her heart was already shouting yes. "Christmas is less than 3 months away. Can we really be ready by then?" "I will make sure we are ready. I will build you a new bedroom onto this house, a proper suite for us to share. I will hire someone to help you prepare, so you are not doing all the work yourself. I will buy you a dress from the finest dressmaker in Silver City." Logan's eyes were bright with enthusiasm. "Say yes, Hannah. Say you will marry me at Christmas and make me the happiest man in New Mexico." "Yes," Hannah said, laughing through happy tears. "Yes, I will marry you at Christmas, and every day after that for the rest of our lives." Logan whooped with joy and lifted her off her feet, spinning her around the kitchen while she laughed and clung to his shoulders. When he set her down again, they were both grinning so wide their faces hurt. "I am going to be the best husband you could imagine," Logan promised. "I am going to spend every day making sure you know how loved and cherished you are." "And I am going to be the best wife," Hannah replied. "We are going to build something wonderful together, Logan. I can feel it." They stayed up late talking about their plans and dreams, about what their wedding would be like and what they hoped for their future. Logan wanted children, lots of them, to fill the ranch house with laughter and love, the way it had been when he was growing up. Hannah wanted that too, had thought she would never have the chance after her first engagement failed. Now the possibility stretched before her like a gift. When they finally said goodnight, Logan walked Hannah to her bedroom door and kissed her one more time, soft and lingering. "Sleep well, my love. Dream about our future." "I will," Hannah promised. "Though I suspect reality is going to be even better than dreams." The next morning, Hannah woke to find herself engaged to the most wonderful man she had ever known. She floated through her morning chores, unable to stop smiling even when her face hurt from the constant expression of joy. The ranch hands noticed immediately, exchanging knowing glances and grinning at each other. When Logan came in for breakfast, Pete stood up and raised his coffee cup. "I think congratulations are in order, boss. We can see it written all over both your faces." Logan did not even try to deny it. "Hannah has agreed to marry me. We will wed at Christmas, and you are all invited to the celebration." The bunkhouse erupted in cheers and congratulations. The men lined up to shake Logan's hand and offer their best wishes to Hannah, who blushed under the attention, but glowed with happiness. Word spread quickly through the small community. Within a week, it seemed like everyone within 50 miles knew about the upcoming wedding. Women from town began stopping by to visit Hannah, bringing fabric samples and recipe suggestions, offering to help with preparations. Hannah was overwhelmed by the kindness and welcome, by how quickly she had been accepted into this community. True to his word, Logan hired a carpenter to add a new bedroom onto the house. He worked alongside the carpenter whenever he could spare time from ranch duties, determined to create a beautiful space for them to share as husband and wife. Hannah watched the room take shape with wonder, seeing how Logan insisted on fine details, like large windows to catch the light and built-in shelves for books. "I want you to have everything," Logan told her one evening as they stood in the half-finished room. "I want our home to be a place where you feel treasured." "I already feel treasured," Hannah assured him. "You could marry me in a barn, and I would be happy, as long as I was with you." "I know," Logan said, pulling her close, "but I still want to give you the world." As October turned to November, the ranch settled into its winter rhythms. The cattle had been driven to market, and Logan returned with a substantial profit that he immediately invested back into the ranch and their future. He bought Hannah a beautiful engagement ring from a jeweler in Silver City, a simple gold band with a small diamond that caught the light. She wore it proudly, twisting it around her finger and marveling that this was really her life now. They spent evenings planning their wedding and their future together. Logan wanted to expand the horse operation even further, perhaps breed quality horses that could be sold across the territory. Hannah wanted to expand the garden and maybe start keeping chickens and milk cows to make the ranch more self-sufficient. They talked about the children they hoped to have, about how they would raise them with love and strong values. "I want them to know both hard work and tenderness," Logan said one night as they sat by the fire. "I want them to understand that strength and gentleness are not opposites but companions." "They will learn that from you," Hannah said. "You embody both those qualities." Logan pulled her closer, and Hannah rested her head on his shoulder, feeling utterly content. This was what she had been searching for without knowing it when she left Missouri. Not just safety or security, but genuine love with a partner who valued her completely. As December arrived, the pace of wedding preparations intensified. Hannah's dress was completed, a beautiful creation of ivory silk with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs. The town church was reserved for the ceremony, and arrangements were made for a celebration afterward at the ranch. Logan had hired additional help to prepare food and set up the main room for dancing and festivities. The night before the wedding, Hannah stood in her room trying on her dress one final time. There was a knock at the door, and Logan's voice called out, "Can I come in? I promise I will close my eyes." Hannah laughed. "That is bad luck, seeing me in my wedding dress before the ceremony." "I am not going to see. I am going to stand on the other side of the door and talk to you. I just need to hear your voice right now." Hannah opened the door to find Logan standing in the hallway, eyes obediently closed. She could not help but smile at the sight of this strong, capable man being so charmingly superstitious. "Your eyes are really closed," she observed. "I told you they would be. I am not taking any chances with our luck." Logan reached out and found her hand, squeezing it gently. "I could not sleep. I keep thinking about tomorrow, about how our lives are going to change." "Are you nervous?" Hannah asked. "Not nervous exactly, more like excited, impatient, ready for our life together to truly begin." Logan's thumb traced circles on her palm. "I never imagined feeling this way about anyone. I had resigned myself to possibly staying single, running the ranch alone, and then you appeared in Pinos Altos, desperate and hungry, and still somehow strong, and you changed everything." "You changed everything for me, too," Hannah said softly. "You saved my life that day, Logan. I do not know what would have happened to me if you had not offered me work." "The universe brought us together," Logan said. "Everything that happened, all the hard things we both endured, led us to that exact moment in that exact place. I cannot be sorry for that, even though I am sorry for the pain you experienced." Hannah felt tears sting her eyes. "I am not sorry either. It was all worth it to find you." Logan squeezed her hand again. "Tomorrow, I get to stand in front of our community and promise to love and cherish you for the rest of my life. It is going to be the easiest promise I have ever made because I already know I will keep it." "I will keep my promises too," Hannah said, "with all my heart." "I should let you sleep," Logan said reluctantly. "Big day tomorrow. Good night, Logan. I love you." "I love you too, Hannah, more than words can possibly express." He brought her hand to his lips and kissed it, eyes still closed, then turned and walked carefully down the hallway. Hannah watched him go, her heart so full of love she thought it might burst. The morning of December 23rd, 1878, dawned clear and cold. Hannah woke early, her stomach fluttering with nerves and excitement. Several women from town arrived to help her prepare, fussing over her hair and dress, offering advice and well wishes. By the time they loaded into wagons to head to Pinos Altos, Hannah felt like she might vibrate out of her skin with anticipation. The church was packed with people, far more than Hannah had expected. It seemed like everyone in the county had turned out to witness the wedding. Logan stood at the front with the preacher, wearing a new black suit that made him look devastatingly handsome. When Hannah entered on the arm of Pete, who had agreed to give her away since she had no family, Logan's face transformed with wonder and love. The ceremony itself passed in a blur of joy. Hannah heard herself speaking the traditional vows, heard Logan's voice rough with emotion as he promised to love and honor her. She felt the weight of the ring as he slipped it onto her finger. And then the preacher was declaring them husband and wife, and Logan was kissing her in front of everyone, not caring who saw, pouring all his love into that kiss. The celebration afterward at the ranch was rowdy and wonderful. Someone produced a fiddle and another man had a guitar, and soon there was music and dancing. Hannah found herself passed from partner to partner as various men insisted on dancing with the bride, but her eyes always found Logan across the room. When they finally danced together, swirling around the main room that had been cleared of furniture, Hannah felt like she was floating. "Hello, wife," Logan murmured in her ear. "Hello, husband," Hannah replied, loving the way the word felt on her tongue. "I cannot wait for everyone to leave so I can have you all to myself," Logan said, his voice low and intimate. "That is not very hospitable," Hannah teased, even as heat flooded through her at the promise in his words. "I am feeling remarkably inhospitable at the moment," Logan admitted. "All I can think about is carrying you to our new bedroom and beginning our married life properly." Hannah blushed, but met his eyes boldly. "I am thinking about that too." The party continued late into the night, but eventually the guests began to depart, offering final congratulations and well wishes. Pete and the other ranch hands retired to the bunkhouse, giving the newlyweds privacy. Finally, blessedly, Logan and Hannah were alone. Logan locked the door and turned to face his wife. "Come here, Hannah Vaughn." Hannah loved the sound of her new name. She crossed to where Logan stood and went into his arms, feeling like she was finally, truly home. He kissed her deeply, with none of the restraint he had shown during their courtship. His hands roamed over her back, learning the contours of her body through the silk of her wedding dress. "I love you so much," Logan whispered against her lips. "My beautiful, strong, remarkable wife." "Show me," Hannah said. "Show me how much you love me." Logan swept her into his arms and carried her to their new bedroom, kicking the door shut behind them. He set her gently on the bed and began unlacing her dress with fingers that trembled slightly despite his confidence. Hannah reached up to help him, and together they shed the layers that separated them until they lay skin to skin, hearts beating in synchrony. What followed was tender and passionate, awkward and perfect, everything a wedding night should be. They learned each other's bodies with reverence and growing confidence, giving and receiving pleasure in equal measure. When they finally lay exhausted and sated in each other's arms, Hannah felt tears of joy slide down her cheeks. "What is wrong?" Logan asked immediately, wiping the tears with gentle fingers. "Nothing is wrong," Hannah assured him. "Everything is so incredibly right. I am just overwhelmed by how happy I am, how lucky I am to have found you." Logan pulled her closer, tucking her head under his chin. "I am the lucky one. You are the answer to prayers I did not even know I was praying." They fell asleep tangled together, beginning the first night of what would be a lifetime of nights spent in each other's arms. The winter months that followed were a period of adjustment and deepening love. Hannah and Logan learned to navigate married life, discovering each other's habits and quirks. They learned to work together even more smoothly, their partnership strengthening as husband and wife. They learned each other's bodies more thoroughly, their physical relationship growing richer and more confident as initial shyness faded. Spring arrived with wildflowers covering the meadows and new foals being born in the pastures. Logan was busy with ranch work, but he always made time for Hannah, insisting on morning coffee together before the day began and evening conversations after work was done. They rode together several times a week, exploring their land and making plans for the future. In May, Hannah realized she had missed her monthly courses. She waited another week to be certain, then told Logan one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "I think I am with child," she said, her voice soft with wonder. Logan went very still beside her. "Are you certain?" "As certain as I can be without a doctor confirming it. But all the signs are there." Logan let out a whoop of joy that probably carried all the way to town. He pulled Hannah into his arms and kissed her soundly. "We are going to have a baby. We are going to be parents." "Are you happy?" Hannah asked, though his reaction made the answer obvious. "Happy does not even begin to cover what I am feeling right now," Logan said. "Ecstatic, grateful, terrified, overwhelmed, all of it at once." He placed his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "There is a baby in there. Our baby. Our baby," Hannah repeated, loving the sound of it. The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the hot summer months. Hannah felt remarkably well, suffering only mild morning sickness that passed by her second trimester. Logan was attentive to the point of being overprotective, constantly trying to take over her chores and insisting she rest more than she wanted to. Hannah found it endearing even when it was frustrating. "I am pregnant, not an invalid," she told him one day when he tried to carry in water from the well for the third time. "I am perfectly capable of doing my normal work." "I know you are," Logan said, "but let me help anyway. I feel useless just watching you work when you are carrying my child." Hannah softened at his earnest expression. "You are not useless. You run this entire ranch. But if it makes you feel better to carry water for me, I will not argue." As Hannah's belly grew, she took great joy in planning for the baby. She sewed tiny clothes and blankets, prepared the small room next to their bedroom as a nursery, and read every book she could find about infant care. Logan built a beautiful cradle from oak wood, carving intricate patterns into the sides during long evenings after ranch work was complete. In late January of 1879, with snow covering the ground outside, Hannah went into labor. Logan rode frantically to town to fetch the midwife, then paced the house like a caged animal, while Hannah labored in their bedroom. The process was long and difficult, and Logan's heart broke every time he heard Hannah cry out in pain. But finally, as dawn broke on January 24th, their son entered the world with a lusty cry that announced his arrival to everyone within earshot. The midwife cleaned the baby and wrapped him in a soft blanket, then placed him in Logan's trembling arms. "You have a healthy son, Mr. Vaughn," she said with a smile. Logan looked down at the tiny face, at the dark hair and red skin and perfect miniature features, and felt his heart expand in ways he had not known were possible. "He is beautiful," he breathed. "Let me see my baby," Hannah said weakly from the bed. Logan carefully carried the infant to his wife, placing the bundle gently in her arms. Hannah looked down at their son and began to cry, overwhelmed with love and exhaustion and relief. "He is perfect," she whispered. "Absolutely perfect." "What should we name him?" Logan asked, sitting on the edge of the bed and wrapping his arm around his wife and child. They had discussed names throughout the pregnancy, but had been unable to decide. Now, looking at their son, the answer came to Hannah immediately. "What about Lucas, after your father?" Logan's eyes filled with tears. His father's name had been Lucas, and Hannah knew how much Logan missed him. "Lucas Vaughn? Yes, that is perfect. He would have been so proud to have a grandson named after him." "Lucas Vaughn?" Hannah repeated, testing the name. Their son made a small sound, almost like agreement, and they both laughed through their tears. The first months of parenthood were exhausting and wonderful. Lucas was a healthy baby, with strong lungs and a healthy appetite. Hannah and Logan took turns walking the floor with him during sleepless nights, supporting each other through the challenges of new parenthood. They marveled at every milestone, his first smile, the way he tracked their movements with his eyes, the grip of his tiny fingers around their own. As spring arrived again, Lucas grew more alert and interactive. He clearly recognized his parents, his face lighting up whenever Logan came in from ranch work. Logan was a devoted father, spending every free moment with his son, talking to him and singing to him, and teaching him about the ranch, even though Lucas was far too young to understand. "You are going to love this place," Logan told Lucas one evening as they sat on the porch, the baby cradled in his father's arms. "This land, these animals, this life we are building, and someday, if you want it, it will all be yours. But no pressure. You can be whatever you want to be. Your mother and I will support you no matter what path you choose." Hannah watched her husband with their son and felt her heart overflow with love. This was everything she had never dared to hope for. A loving partner, a beautiful child, a home that felt safe and permanent. The desperate woman who had begged for work in Pinos Altos seemed like a distant memory now, a different person entirely. Life settled into new rhythms as Lucas grew. By his first birthday, he was toddling around on unsteady legs, getting into everything and keeping both his parents constantly alert. Hannah found motherhood suited her, even with the exhaustion and challenges. Logan continued to be an active, engaged father, sharing the work of childcare with Hannah in ways that were unusual for the time, but felt right for their partnership. When Lucas was 18 months old, Hannah discovered she was pregnant again. This time, the news was met with excitement rather than surprise. They knew what to expect now, felt prepared for the chaos another child would bring. Their daughter was born on a warm August day in 1880, arriving much faster than her brother had. She had her mother's auburn hair and her father's blue eyes, and they named her Lily after Hannah's mother. Lucas was fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to touch her constantly with his chubby toddler hands. Gentle, Hannah would remind him, showing him how to stroke Lily's soft hair without pulling. You have to be very gentle with babies. With 2 children now, the ranch house was filled with noise and activity and love. Logan hired additional help, so Hannah would not be overwhelmed trying to manage the household and 2 young children. He made sure she had time to rest and time for the 2 of them to be together as a couple, not just as parents. "You are doing an amazing job," he told her one night after they had finally gotten both children to sleep. "I know this is exhausting. I want you to know I see how hard you work, and I appreciate everything you do." "We are doing this together," Hannah said. "I could not manage without your help and support." "That is what marriage is supposed to be," Logan said. "A partnership in all things. My parents taught me that, and I want to pass that lesson on to our children." The years flowed by, each one bringing new joys and challenges. Lucas grew into a serious, thoughtful boy who loved helping his father with ranch work. Lily was more spirited, always singing and laughing, keeping everyone entertained with her antics. In 1883, another son arrived, whom they named Samuel after Hannah's father. In 1885, another daughter they called Rose completed their family. The ranch prospered under Logan's careful management. His horse operation became known throughout the territory for producing quality animals, and buyers came from as far as Texas and Colorado to purchase his stock. The cattle operation remained strong, and Logan hired a full crew of ranch hands to help manage the growing workload. Hannah thrived as a mother and ranch wife. Her garden had expanded significantly, and she had indeed started keeping chickens and dairy cows. She taught the children to read and write, supplementing their education with lessons about nature and ranch life. She sewed clothes for her growing family, preserved food for winter, and somehow still managed to keep the house running smoothly. But it was not all work. Logan made sure they took time for joy and rest. Summer evenings often found the whole family on the porch, Logan playing guitar while the children danced and Hannah sang. They rode out together on Sundays when the weather was good, exploring the land and teaching the children to appreciate the wild beauty that surrounded them. On their 10th wedding anniversary in December of 1888, Logan surprised Hannah with a trip to Santa Fe, just the 2 of them. Pete and the other ranch hands promised to watch the children, assuring them that everything would be fine for a few days. In Santa Fe, Logan and Hannah stayed at a fine hotel and ate at restaurants where someone else did the cooking for a change. They walked through the historic plaza, visited art galleries and shops, and spent long hours simply talking and being together without the constant demands of children and ranch work. "Do you ever regret it?" Logan asked one evening as they sat in their hotel room. "The life you might have had if you had made it to California?" Hannah looked at her husband, at the lines time had etched around his eyes, at the gray just beginning to show at his temples. "Not for a single moment. California could not possibly offer anything better than what I have found here with you." "Sometimes I still cannot believe you are mine," Logan said. "That you chose me, chose this life. You could have had any man you wanted, Hannah." "I wanted you," Hannah said simply. "From that very first day, even though it took me a while to admit it to myself. You saw me when I was at my absolute lowest, and you offered me dignity and hope. You gave me work and safety, and then you gave me love. You have spent every day of our marriage proving that I made the right choice." Logan pulled her into his arms, and they stood together in the quiet hotel room, marveling at the life they had built. "Here is to the next 10 years, Logan said, "and all the years after that." "To forever," Hannah agreed. They returned to the ranch to find chaos. The children had apparently tested Pete's patience to its limits. The house was a disaster, and everyone was thrilled to see the parents return. But Hannah and Logan just laughed and set about restoring order, energized by their brief escape and ready to dive back into family life. The 1890s brought continued growth and prosperity. Logan had become a respected voice in the territory, known for his fair dealing and quality stock. Hannah was beloved in the community, known for her kindness and her willingness to help anyone in need. Their children were growing into capable, thoughtful individuals who understood both hard work and compassion. Lucas, now a teenager, worked alongside his father on the ranch, learning the skills he would need to eventually take over the operation. He had Logan's steady temperament and Hannah's thoughtful nature, and he showed promise as both a horseman and a businessman. Lily had inherited her mother's love of cooking and growing things. At 12, she was already an accomplished baker and helped Hannah tend the expanded garden. She talked about maybe opening a restaurant someday, and Logan encouraged her dreams while also teaching her practical skills. Samuel and Rose were still young enough to be playful and carefree, but they were learning responsibility through age-appropriate chores and lessons. The ranch house rang with their laughter, and both Logan and Hannah felt grateful every day for the family they had created. On Hannah's 40th birthday in 1896, Logan threw her a surprise party that brought together everyone from miles around. The house and yard were packed with friends and neighbors, all of them celebrating the woman who would become the heart of not just one family, but an entire community. As Hannah looked around at the gathered crowd, at her 4 healthy children, at her husband who still looked at her with the same love and wonder he had shown 18 years earlier, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. The desperate young woman who had begged for work in a dusty town seemed like a character from someone else's story now. "What are you thinking about?" Logan asked, coming up beside her and slipping his arm around her waist. "I am thinking about how blessed I am," Hannah said, "about how one moment of courage changed my entire life. If I had been too proud or too afraid to ask you for work that day in Pinos Altos, none of this would exist. The universe brought us together," Logan said, echoing words he had spoken on their wedding eve. "I truly believe that. We were meant to find each other, meant to build this life together." "I believe that too," Hannah said. She turned in his arms to face him fully. "Thank you, Logan Vaughn, for seeing me, for choosing me, for loving me so completely." "Thank you for the same," Logan replied. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Hannah. You and these children and this life we have made. I would not change a single thing." They kissed there in the middle of the party, not caring who saw, still as in love as they had been on their wedding day. Around them, their children and friends cheered and laughed, celebrating the love story that had begun with a desperate request and had bloomed into something beautiful and enduring. As the sun set over the New Mexico landscape, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, Hannah and Logan stood together surrounded by everyone they loved. The ranch stretched out around them, testimony to years of hard work and careful stewardship. The house behind them rang with laughter and music and life. This was home. This was family. This was the happily ever after that Hannah had stopped believing in, brought to life through courage and kindness and a love that had only grown deeper with time. And as she stood there in her husband's arms, surrounded by the life they had built together, Hannah knew with absolute certainty that her story had found its perfect ending. The years continued to unfold with the steady rhythm of ranch life. Lucas married a kind young woman from Silver City when he was 22, and they built a small house on the ranch property, beginning the next generation of Vaughns who would call this land home. Lily did indeed open a restaurant in Pinos Altos, and it quickly became the most popular eating establishment in town, known for her excellent cooking and warm hospitality. Samuel showed a talent for working with horses that even surpassed his father's, and he took over the horse operation completely, expanding it in new directions. Rose surprised everyone by announcing she wanted to become a teacher, and Logan and Hannah supported her fully, sending her to the normal school in Santa Fe to get her teaching certificate. Logan and Hannah grew older together gracefully, their love maturing like fine wine. They became grandparents multiple times over, and nothing delighted them more than having the house filled with grandchildren during holidays and special occasions. They worked side by side on the ranch well into their 60s, only gradually reducing their workload as their children took over more responsibilities. On their 30th wedding anniversary, their children threw them a grand celebration. The entire town of Pinos Altos seemed to attend, along with people from throughout the territory who had been touched by Logan and Hannah's kindness over the years. 30 years, Hannah marveled as she and Logan danced together, just as they had at their wedding. Sometimes it feels like just yesterday that you offered me work. Other times, it feels like we have been together forever. Both things can be true, Logan said, his blue eyes still bright despite the silver in his hair. Every day with you has been a gift, Hannah. The best years of my life have been spent loving you. Mine too, Hannah said softly. You saved my life that day in Pinos Altos, Logan. But more than that, You gave me a reason to live. You gave me love and family and purpose. You gave me everything." "We gave each other everything," Logan corrected. "This has been a partnership from the beginning, equal partners in all things." As they swayed together to the music, surrounded by their children and grandchildren and community, both Logan and Hannah reflected on the unlikely journey that had brought them together. A desperate woman begging for work, a lonely cowboy with a kind heart, a single act of compassion that had changed two lives forever. Their story was not one of grand gestures or dramatic rescues, though it had begun with both. It was a story of daily choosing to love and support each other, of working together through challenges and celebrating joys, of building something meaningful and lasting through dedication and partnership, of two people who had been broken by loss finding wholeness in each other. It was, in short, a story of true love in its most real and beautiful form. And as Logan and Hannah held each other close, dancing beneath the stars on the land they had made home, they knew their story was exactly what it needed to be, a testament to the power of courage, compassion, and enduring love. The ranch would continue long after they were gone, passed down through generations of Vaughns who would work the land and raise their families here. But it would always carry the imprint of Logan and Hannah, the couple who had started with nothing but determination and kindness and had built an empire of love that would last far beyond their years. And so, their story ends not with an ending at all, but with the promise of continuation, with children who carried on their values and grandchildren who would never know hardship the way Hannah had because of the foundation she and Logan had built, with a community strengthened by their presence and a land made better by their stewardship. Hannah and Logan lived well into their 70s, growing old together with grace and continued devotion. When Logan passed peacefully in his sleep at age 76, Hannah mourned deeply, but also celebrated a life fully lived and a love fully realized. She followed him just 2 years later, and they were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch, beneath trees they had planted together decades earlier. At their joint memorial service, Lucas spoke about his parents with tears streaming down his weathered face. "My father once told me that he found my mother begging for work in Pinos Altos, and he hired her immediately and walked her back to his ranch. He said it was the best decision he ever made. And my mother told me that the day she asked my father for work was the day her real life began. They built something beautiful together, something that will outlast all of us. They showed us what love looks like in its truest form, not just romance, but partnership, not just passion, but devotion, not just a feeling, but a daily choice to honor and cherish each other. That is their legacy. That is what they gave us." And so, the story of Hannah Harper and Logan Vaughn came to its natural close, a tale that had begun with desperation and evolved into devotion, that started with a simple act of kindness and bloomed into a love that shaped generations. Their names would be remembered in Pinos Altos, their story told and retold, a reminder that sometimes the most profound love stories begin with the smallest acts of compassion, and that true love, built on respect and partnership, can weather any storm and last beyond a lifetime.